is Anne Frank, as you can probably guess. And my mum is called Edith. Edith was born on the 16th of January 1900. My dad is called Otto. Otto was born on the 12th of May 1889 and was a clever man. And I have an older sister called Margot. She looks quite similar to me. Margot was around 3 years older than Anne and was 16 when they went into hiding. Me and my family are Jewish, but it turns out being Jewish in the Second World War wasn't a good thing. I was born in June in 1929. Hitler then came to power in 1933 and started to discriminate against the Jews. So my dad decided to take us to the Netherlands. We should have gone somewhere else because it didn't end well. Like any other normal teenage girl, I enjoyed normal things. You know, school, friends, just life. I loved riding my bike and I loved my cat. But then, on my 13th birthday, you'll never guess what happened. Father let me choose my own gift from a shop. So, I decided to choose a red journal. Every day, I would write pages and pages about what was happening in my life. My worries, my friends, what was happening at school. I filled every page with detail about what was going on. I suspect that my teddy felt a little left out that I was writing in my diary all the time. But then I had 2 friends, my diary and my teddy. I decided to name my diary Kitty, so that I felt that I had another friend. Then, one day, my father announced that we were going to have to go into hiding, seeing as the Netherlands was going to be invaded by the Nazis. There was a secret place behind his office, and he called it the secret annex. We were going to live there for however long it took the Nazis to leave. So every day we moved bits of furniture to the secret annex. We couldn't bring suitcases because it would look suspicious. And before that, Margot had had a letter from the Nazis saying that she had to come to the concentration camp. She refused, and that's why we had to move to the secret annex so soon. We were only allowed to take 1 bag full of stuff. So I put my most valued possessions in the box. I put my blankets, a pile of books to keep me entertained, of course, my teddy, and, last of all, my diary. When we got to the secret annex, I missed my friends so much. And we weren't allowed to wear shoes when we were walking around the house, otherwise the people downstairs would hear us. Luckily, unlike most people, there weren't Nazis coming into our house every so often and searching the place for Jews, because we were on top of a warehouse, you see, so the Nazis didn't come. The door to the secret annex was behind a bookshelf, and we never left there. The last time we went through the door to the annex, we never realised that it would be the last time we ever saw daylight until we came out. We weren't allowed to open the windows, otherwise people would see where we were hiding. Although, one time, I did sneak a look out of the window. I hope no one saw me. It wasn't just my family in the annex. Another family, who were friends of our family, were there as well. They were called the Van Pels, although in my diary, I called them the Van Dams. I don't know why. Peter, their son, was a very lovely boy. However, he was a bit strange sometimes, and he was very shy. The Van Pels, I didn't really get along with them. The parents, I mean. I suppose I just didn't spend as much time with them. For the first half of hiding, that was the first year, I got my own room. I was so lucky. But then, a family friend, who was also a dentist, came along too, and he just had to share my room. He was 53, and he snored all the time, so I didn't get any sleep. Sadly, in the annex, there were so many rules. I hated rules, and I always broke them, but I didn't mean to, although sometimes I did. Anyway, rule number 1. If you drop something, you'll be scolded severely. Rule number 2, you're not allowed to flush the toilet, because the people downstairs would hear. We had to go out of the bookshelf to go to the toilet. However, it was just next to the bookshelf door, so we didn't have to go very far. One time, Someone from the office was using the toilet and Peter needed it so badly that he barged in and shoved the other person out. Rule number 3. We were only allowed to walk barefooted. No shoes. Otherwise the floorboards would creak and there would be banging from on. If you were downstairs, you would hear banging coming from the ceiling. We had to be so quiet, and we had to put these huge black curtains up on the windows so no one could see in. That was another rule. We weren't allowed to open them unless it was necessary, although it hardly was necessary. One time, we used up all our electricity. We couldn't pay for more, so I had to make do with the candle. But luckily, that was just enough for me to see what I was writing in my diary. I didn't know when the end would come, but I knew it would, eventually. As I said before, my father Otto feared that the Nazis would come and find us, and they had already started looking for Jews. They wouldn't give up until they found every single one of us. So one day, they found us. We didn't know who had told them about the secret annex. We didn't have time to think about that anyway. They dragged us out, and they put us in this huge cattle train. It was crowded, with at least 20 people in each carriage, and it took 3 days to get to the concentration camp. They didn't tell us where we were going, but everyone knew, and so every day they would throw a slice of bread in for us. By the end, we were so hungry, and we didn't know what to do. There was no food that we could have, and we hadn't brought any with us, seeing as they told us to leave all of our belongings behind. Oh, my poor bugs. My teddy. Kitty, what would I do about her? Oh, I really hope she was okay. It was freezing in the train, and we were so crowded. Luckily, I had brought one blanket with me. Some people didn't even have any clothes on. When we got there, I could just see barbed wire everywhere, and there were huge dogs with guards. They let us into the gates, and they separated the men and the women. I felt so bad to see Peter and my father go. I didn't know what to do. I started crying. They lined us all up, and they saw if we were in good health or not. Luckily, me and my family were. Or was it so lucky after all? The people who weren't in good health and weren't strong at all were sent into the gas chambers and killed, and their bodies were thrown into huge pits. It was the most disrespectful thing I had ever seen. As I said, me and my family were chosen to work, so it would basically be like torture for however long we would stay there. It was awful, but luckily I did spend some of my time with Margot. The bunks had at least 20 people on each 2 beds, so I had to share with so many people, and there weren't any blankets. I dreamed of blankets, and I dreamed of lovely pillows. It was raining most of the days, and there was mud everywhere. Every time I looked around, I could see people that were huddling close together for warmth with their blankets, but they were horrible and itchy. I hated them. If you looked over at the boys, they were wearing these horrible uniforms that were too big and itchy. I would have hated to wear those. Luckily, I didn't have to, but some people did. Everyone was skeletons because we had no help, no food, and there was no hospital treatment for anyone that got ill. There were so many people that had died, and you could see people that were about to die, and everyone around them was crying. I felt so bad, and I knew that one day that would happen to someone in my family, maybe even me. I didn't know what to do. We were whipped and beaten and tortured, and it was awful. I couldn't stand it. Every morning, we would get a piece of bread and black and thin, watery black coffee. I hated coffee, but I had to make do with it. I may as well eat something rather than nothing. Late afternoon, we were given a small bowl of watery soup. It was disgusting. It had no flavour and no nutrition in it, so everyone almost starved to death. Lots of people died from the gas chambers, but lots of people died from working as well, either from dehydration or from starvation. Seeing as it was so crowded, disease spread so easily, and everyone got the diseases. I tried to stay well away from everyone, knowing that this would happen, but it didn't really work. The guards would tell us to go and wash every morning, and we would have about 5 seconds to do it. They would get this huge barrel of cold water, and they would just pour it on our faces. We were so dirty that we couldn't recognise each other. You didn't know who was who, and everyone's body shape had changed, seeing as we were so skinny. I knew that this wouldn't end well. And that was when I remembered a quote that my father had told me just before we had left. "Every child must raise themselves." Seeing as my father had said that, I thought about trying to take care of myself, stealing other people's food, but no, that was never going to work, and I definitely couldn't escape. I remembered something I'd written in My Dearest Kitty a few days before the Nazis found us. I wrote in my diary, "To think of all the beauty around you, and you will still be happy." Bergen-Belsen became a Nazi concentration camp in 1943. Anne and Margot Frank both died of typhus fever in February 1945. They both died just weeks before the camp was liberated by the Allies. When Anne was a child, she was described as a lively, happy girl that loved to talk. Otto Frank was the only one of the family to survive the concentration camps. He found Anne's diary in the secret annex and decided to publish the book. He did this so that the rest of the world could experience his family's suffering, and this would never happen again. Today, people still read Anne's diary, and it shows you how horrible it was for the Jews. Some people think that someone betrayed the Frank family to the Nazis, but it hasn't been confirmed yet.